No one prepares you for the silence that follows devotion. You can build a life for her. Walls, comfort, promises, and still watch her spirit drift like smoke through your hands. You can do everything right and still lose her. Not because love died, but because you disappeared from yourself while trying to keep her close. And that doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. You stop bringing the fire that once warmed the room, the quiet fire that lives inside a man who knows who he is. That's what she was drawn to, the quiet gravity, the still pulse of certainty. And when that light went dim, she followed the warmth wherever it still lived. But here's the truth no one says out loud. She didn't leave to hurt you. She left to remind you where your strength had fallen asleep. If that line struck something true in you, take a second to like this video. Not for me, but to remember the moment you started seeing yourself again. Because what a woman truly seeks isn't perfection or gifts or endless peace. It's the feeling of standing beside a man who doesn't vanish when storms arrive. So don't chase her absence. Stand up in it. Because once you remember the man beneath the noise, you'll stop losing people and start finding the kind of love that never leaves. Because once you understand what she's truly loyal to, everything about love begins to make sense again. What she's truly loyal to. Every man thinks he knows what women want: affection, safety, effort. But the truth is simpler and far less comfortable. You thought loyalty meant history, that if you built something together, a home, a life, 1,000 shared mornings, it would be enough to keep love alive. But the truth is quieter and harder. She was never loyal to what you did. She was loyal to what she experienced when she was with you. That's why it hurts, because you remember everything you gave, and she only remembers the moments that truly moved her. For a man, that sounds unfair. We love through logic, through effort, through proof. But her world doesn't run on logic. It moves on sensation. When your presence once moved her like a current pulling her deeper, and now it feels still, her body notices before her mind ever does. That's when her warmth starts to fade. Not out of cruelty, but because the pull that once held her is gone. Here's the part most men never see. You can't hold her by doing more. You can only hold her by being more. Not louder, not richer, not stronger, but more alive, more rooted, more real. Because when you shrink to please her, you stop radiating the very thing that made her stay. When you hide your truth to avoid conflict, you become a version of yourself she can no longer feel. So stop asking, what did I do wrong? Start asking, where did I lose myself? You don't need to fix everything today. Awareness is already a kind of healing. Because when you come back to that quiet strength, the part of you that doesn't chase, doesn't prove, doesn't beg, you'll realize she wasn't your home. What if home was the part of you that never begged? Have you ever felt that moment when you realized it was never really about her, but about what you lost inside yourself? She was the mirror showing you the man you forgot to be. And that realization doesn't break you. It rebuilds you. That's the moment a man begins to rise again. Not by fighting for her attention, but by reclaiming his own presence. When the world speeds up, feelings don't stay still. After months of watching how people love and leave, I noticed a strange pattern. Not in women, but in the rhythm of the world itself. There was a time when love could breathe, when people stayed even when things got quiet. When a pause wasn't a threat, it was proof. Proof that connection didn't need fireworks to be alive. That time feels far away now. The world has changed its rhythm, and hearts are struggling to keep up. A message takes seconds. A conversation lasts minutes. and entire relationships now rise and collapse before a season ends. It's not that people love less, they just feel too much, too fast, too soon. Every emotion is amplified, every silence feels like distance, and every moment that isn't exciting enough gets labeled as wrong. She's not colder because she stopped caring. She's colder because she forgot how to slow down. Because this world taught her that stillness means danger, that peace means boredom, and that anything stable must be missing something. That's the quiet wound of our time. We mistake calm for emptiness. We crave constant motion, not realizing we're running away from the only thing that could heal us. You feel it too, don't you? The pressure to always keep her entertained, to always do more, say more, give more, because the world convinced you that love must feel like a chase. But love built on adrenaline will never last. It burns bright, then burns out. Because what makes someone stay isn't how fast you can make them feel something. It's how safe they are able to rest when everything slows down. That's the paradox men forget. You don't win by moving faster. You win by standing still with depth. You don't hold her by running after her energy. You hold her by being the place she can finally rest. In a world that moves at the speed of distraction, stillness has become the new rarity, and the man who carries it becomes magnetic, not because he chases the world, but because he gives it something the world forgot to give itself: peace. So when she starts drifting, don't run after her. Hold your ground. Let her feel the weight of your calm, because somewhere deep in her body, she still remembers the weight of truth, and truth doesn't rush. When was the last time silence felt like safety, not distance? Take one quiet pause before you answer what matters. I once watched an old couple sit in silence for an hour. No phones, no words, just presence. And I realized love doesn't grow through what you say. It grows through what you no longer need to explain. She might circle the noise for months, looking for a spark to replace the warmth she lost. But one day, she'll feel that quiet pull again. The pull toward the man who isn't fighting the current, but becoming the river itself. That's what she was always drawn to. Not the words, not the gestures, not the thrill, but the gravity. The presence that doesn't disappear when everything else speeds up. So slow down, breathe before you speak, pause before you react, and let the world spin around you while you remain still. Because when a man masters stillness, he stops losing people. He stops losing peace. And he becomes something far rarer than attractive. He becomes anchored. The illusion of doing everything right. Most men think doing everything right protects love. It doesn't. You tried to live by the book. Work hard, stay patient, be kind. You thought that if you did everything right, life would eventually return the favor. That love would stay, people would see your heart, and loyalty would last. But somewhere along the way, the math stopped working. You gave more and felt less. It wasn't weakness. It was your way of loving with everything you had. You spoke softer and felt unheard. You became the steady one, the safe one, the one who never caused waves. And still the connection that once felt alive began to fade. You look back and wonder, how could doing everything right feel so wrong? Here's why. Because being right isn't the same as being real. Somewhere in the pursuit of peace, you stopped showing your truth. You traded honesty for harmony. You learned to hide edges that made you human. And people can sense when a man hides his fire. They might even call you too good. But what they really mean is they can't feel you anymore. Be honest. Have you ever felt unseen even while doing everything right? Because connection was never built on perfection, it was built on presence. That's the trap no one warns you about. When you build your worth on a performance, your heart becomes a product. You start living like life owes you something for being good. But life doesn't owe you. It mirrors you. If you go quiet inside, it goes quiet outside. If you shrink to stay loved, it stops recognizing who you are. And soon you find yourself surrounded by people who like the idea of you, but not your soul. Who would still choose you if you stop performing? It's not weakness that kills love. It's overcorrection. The man who tries to be flawless slowly disappears behind his own effort. He becomes the actor of his own piece and one day realizes he doesn't even know what he truly feels anymore. But the truth is simple. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. And wholeness isn't quiet all the time. It has weight, texture, imperfection. It knows when to stand up, when to say no, when to walk away with grace instead of guilt. When you live from that space, the space where you don't perform for love, but move from truth, something changes. People feel it. Not because you're louder, but because you are clearer. And even if they leave, you don't crumble. Because you no longer depend on their approval to confirm your worth. If you know a man who needs to hear this truth, share it with him. Sometimes one quiet message can start another man's healing. You finally realize peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of authenticity. So stop trying to do everything right. I know it's hard. Habits built on survival don't fade overnight. Do what's real. Let your honesty breathe again. Because the moment you stop pretending to be the perfect man, you become the kind of man who never has to chase respect. It starts finding you. Name one place in your life that needs your honest voice back. After all the searching, one truth kept echoing, it's never about doing more, it's about being whole. The bridge between logic and emotion. The problem isn't that men feel too little, it's that they fear what they'd find if they truly felt. And after everything I'd seen, I realized the battle wasn't between men and women. It was inside every man. Most men live like divided maps, half of them built on reason, the other half ruled by emotion, and they spend their lives trying to silence one side to please the other. We're taught to think clearly, act calmly, stay rational, to be the mountain that never moves. And for a while it works. But one day you wake up in the quiet and realize you've kept the warmth out too. Because without emotion, reason becomes dry. And without reason, emotion becomes wild. Peace isn't choosing one. It's learning how to let both speak without letting either lead you astray. That's the art most men were never shown. How to feel deeply without drowning. How to think clearly without freezing. It's like watching fire and water dance. Like fire and water meeting to create gentle steam, enough to keep you alive, not to burn you. That balance isn't theory. You can sense it in a single calm moment. You don't have to be the mountain all the time. Sometimes you're meant to be the river, still flowing, still calm, but alive. The world will tell you that emotion makes you weak, but it's not emotion that weakens a man. It's attachment. It's believing that every feeling demands a reaction. When you learn to feel without obeying, you start to see emotion for what it truly is, a messenger, not a master. What feeling keeps knocking that you keep ignoring? That's when your inner world shifts. When anger arrives, you don't fight it, you listen. When sadness whispers, you don't run, you stay. You don't have to open everything at once. Even a quiet look inside counts. Every man knows that silence. When you want to speak but can't find words that feel safe. Because emotion isn't the enemy of logic. It's the language of the body trying to remind the mind what it forgot: to be human. You're not broken. You're just adjusting to a new rhythm of truth. And logic isn't there to kill feeling. It's there to hold it, to give it form, like a frame gives meaning to the art inside. That's what balance feels like. Not perfect calm, but the quiet confidence of knowing you can hold both storm and stillness without losing yourself to either. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's what stillness really means. Strength that doesn't need to control. And when you live that way, you stop being at war with yourself. That's when the world softens. As you move with it instead of against it, you notice conversations begin to flow again. That's when the world starts to feel different. You stop analyzing people so much and start feeling them again. You stop debating what's right and start noticing what's real. Your heart and your mind stop arguing. They start listening to each other. And the man who listens to both becomes unshakable. Because his peace isn't cold, it's alive. It feels everything, but is owned by nothing. That's the bridge every man must cross, from control to harmony, from silence to stillness, from intellect to wisdom. Words change, but energy never lies. We live in a world obsessed with words. People promise forever, speak of love, of loyalty, of truth. But words are like water. They take the shape of the moment that holds them. One day someone says, "You mean everything to me." Months later, the same mouth goes silent, and you stand there wondering which version was real. The truth is, both were, because words reflect what a person feels in that instant, but energy reveals who they really are. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That's why energy feels lighter than words. Because truth doesn't rehearse pain, it releases it. It's like standing near a candle. You don't need to see the flame to feel the heat. That's how truth works. It doesn't shout. It simply warms or burns depending on what's real. You can fake language. You can rehearse kindness, but energy never lies. It's in the pauses, the tone, the silence between sentences. It's the way someone looks away when their heart has already left the room. That's what most people miss. They listen to what's said instead of what's felt. And then they wonder why everything sounds right but feels wrong. The Stoics understood this long before the noise of social language. They didn't judge words. They read intention, because truth to them was never loud. It was steady. You can tell when someone's energy matches their words. It feels like breathing near a calm sea. When it's not real, you simply feel yourself closing. A quiet signal from the body and asking you to pause, not to judge. That's not intuition, that's awareness. It's the body's quiet wisdom, reminding you to stop chasing words that sound beautiful, but cost you peace. If you ever want to know who truly stands with you, notice your energy the moment they enter the room. Does it expand or tighten? Does it breathe or brace? The body speaks the truth before the tongue ever does. And once you learn to trust that, life gets quieter, but clearer. Which words once sounded perfect, but never gave you peace? You stop trying to decode every sentence. You stop demanding closure from people who already drifted. Because energy always tells the story first. And when you learn to trust that quiet knowing, life stops shouting and starts whispering peace. It's not mystical. It's alignment. When something is true, it moves toward peace. When something is false, it creates tension. So stop clinging to promises that were never meant to last. Stop asking for explanations that don't heal. and stop confusing what's loud with what's true. In the end, what matters isn't what they said, it's how your soul felt standing next to them. Because words fade, but energy remembers. And somewhere below thought, your body keeps the promise your mind forgot. And maybe that's what love was always meant to be. Not a promise, but a frequency. Something that stays long after the words are gone, whispering quietly, reminding you what peace once felt like. The fear of losing control. There's a strange moment every man faces when love starts to feel like a test he can't pass. You want peace, you want things steady, but somewhere along the way, peace turns into control. You start watching her tone, her habits, her distance, not because you're possessive, but because you're terrified of losing what once felt certain. That's how control begins. Not with power, but with fear. You tell yourself, if I can just keep things predictable, it won't hurt again. But control is a quiet thief. It takes the softness out of love and replaces it with tension. It makes every conversation a battlefield of hidden expectations. And before you realize it, you're no longer protecting love. You're protecting your fear of losing it. You weren't wrong, just tired. And tiredness often looks like control. Every man who's ever loved deeply knows that pull. You start adjusting your words, hiding your truth, trying to preempt storms that might never come. You think you're building safety, but you're only building distance. Because love can't live in a room where one heart is holding itself too tight. If you loosened your grip right now, what would return first? I once met a man who said, I lost her the moment I started trying not to. He didn't mean neglect, he meant control. He forgot that love isn't something you grip tighter. It's something you stand still enough to receive. That's the paradox of strength most men miss. The harder you try to hold, the faster things slip through your fingers. Because power isn't in the grip, it's in the ground beneath you. A calm man holds more than a controlling one ever could. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once wrote, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." He wasn't talking about power, he was talking about peace. The kind of peace that returns when you finally understand. You never owned anyone's loyalty. You only earned their trust by being present enough to deserve it. So when the fear of loss rises, don't fight it. Watch it. Let it speak. Because what it's really saying is, don't leave me behind again. And when you answer that fear with stillness instead of strategy, something beautiful happens. The storm passes on its own. If this truth hit home, take a breath and like this video, and not to agree, but to anchor this moment of stillness inside you. Because when a man stops trying to control love, he doesn't lose it. He becomes the space where love can finally rest. And that's the quiet victory most men spend a lifetime chasing. The return of presence. There comes a season when a man stops trying to fix the past and simply stands still. Not out of defeat, but because he finally understands that healing was never about repairing what was broken. It was about remembering what was always there. You start to notice small things again. The sound of your own breathing, the way sunlight lands on your hands, the quiet pulse behind every moment you used to rush through. And for the first time in a long time, you realize you're not waiting for anyone to see you. You're seeing yourself. What do you notice about you that you used to overlook? That's what presence really is. It isn't performance and it isn't philosophy, it's awareness. The ability to be fully where your feet are, no longer trapped in the memory of who left or in the fantasy of who might return. I once heard a man say, "I stopped chasing closure when I realized my peace wasn't hiding behind her door." That's presence. When the mind stops sprinting and the heart finally sits down to rest beside the truth. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And maybe that's the quiet lesson all pain was trying to teach you. You can't master what happens around you, but you can master how deeply you exist within it. Presence isn't silence, it's participation. It's saying what you mean without noise and listening without planning your next defense. It's walking into a room and bringing calm instead of trying to find it. When you start living that way, people feel it, not because you demand attention, but because you radiate peace in a world starving for it. You stop performing love and start becoming it. You stop proving your worth and start inhabiting it. Take what speaks to you, leave the rest for another day. If you've felt that quiet return, that sense of coming home to yourself, leave a comment and tell me what that moment felt like. And if you want to keep walking this path together, subscribe so you never forget the strength already inside you. Because every man who finds his way back helps another one do the same. And when that happens, life softens, the noise fades, and you finally understand you were never meant to chase balance. You were meant to be it. There comes a point in every man's life when the search ends, not because he's found everything, but because he's finally stopped running from himself. You begin to see it clearly. It was never about being perfect, never about proving your worth, or holding on to people who no longer feel you. It was always about remembering the quiet strength that was there before the world told you to be more. The peace you were chasing wasn't hiding in anyone's arms. It was waiting inside your own presence. The loyalty you kept giving away was meant to begin within. You don't need to harden to protect yourself anymore. You don't need to shrink to be understood. You just need to stand, honest, calm, unshaken, and let life meet you there. Because when a man returns to stillness, he doesn't lose anything. He gains himself. And from that space, everything true begins again. Let the world rush. Let people come and go. Let feelings rise and fall. You remain steady, aware, alive, with the river beneath everything. You were never meant to be the one who chases. You were meant to be the one who radiates. Don't chase her absence. Stand up in it. What line will you carry into tomorrow morning? If this message hits somewhere real, tell me, which part spoke to you most? And the moment you remember that, you stop searching for peace and start becoming it. If this message found you at the right moment, you're already part of this journey. I'm grateful you're here. This is Move or Die Stoic.